Hi, Verb of the Day viewers. You might have noticed that over the last 2 weeks, the viewer Ella has suggested that I talk about the verbs suggest, recommend, offer, and propose. And I added endorse to this group because in some situations you might hear one or multiple of these verbs being used, and it can be kind of confusing to know when should I use one versus another, or maybe what is someone trying to tell me when they're using one of these particular verbs. So in this video, I've come up with a few different situations that I'm going to kind of talk through and explain why you might hear or not hear some of these verbs used in those situations. But perhaps you have another situation in mind. I would love for you to make a comment, explain what you're thinking is happening, or what might be best to use or to say in this particular situation. And I will also certainly comment and hopefully increase our understanding of how to best use all of these verbs. So let's start with a particular situation. I want us to pretend we have this friend, and the friend has been sick, right? And this has been going on for some time, but the friend's like, I'm gonna get better. I don't need to go see a doctor. I don't need to get any sort of medical help. So time continues to go on. This friend is still sick. They're not improving, okay? As you're talking to your friend, you might say, I suggest you go to a doctor, right? Now, this could sound a little funny, a little different, and I would tell you many people are just going to use the modal should, right? Because they're giving advice. They're sharing, I think it's a good idea to do this. You should go to a doctor. Okay, but really, you should go, or I suggest you go, is going to have about the same meaning, right? You're sharing that you think this is a good action to take. Okay, now if you were to say instead, I recommend you go to a doctor, I would say this is a little bit stronger than suggest. So many times when we use this word recommend in a particular situation, we think this is the best course of action, the best thing someone can do. So again, if you want to be a little firmer with that particular friend, you might go to that particular verb. Okay. Now, as you're talking to your friend, perhaps you say, I'll drive you, or I'll go with you to the appointment. Okay. In this case, now you've offered to help them maybe get to the appointment, or maybe be more comfortable as they're seeing a doctor. In this particular situation, I would say it's pretty unlikely we're going to hear propose or endorse used. Both of those verbs tend to be more formal in nature. And so as we're talking with friends, I don't know that those come up as frequently, or as or they're just not used as much because we tend to be more informal with our family and friends. So that's situation one. Let's move on to a second situation. Let's pretend this time you are at work, right? And you have this team with whom you work each day, and you all have some sort of problem. You're at a meeting and you're going to discuss this problem. What do we do? How do we fix this particular issue or problem? Okay. One of your coworkers might say something like, I suggest we do X to solve this problem. Okay, so they're thinking, I think this could be a good idea, right? Okay, but perhaps you have another coworker who's a bit more formal. They say, I propose we do Y, right? So I'm not making specific recommendations. This is just a general problem. So X and Y are kind of placeholders for the actual plan or the actual action, okay? So propose, again, a bit more formal. Maybe you have a third co-worker. They've got another idea. They say, I recommend we do Z. So this person is really suggesting Z is a better choice than X or Y. And they might go on to explain why they think Z is the best choice or the best thing that can be done. Okay. Now, there might be these ongoing discussions, a little bit of debate. Should we do X? Should we do Y? Should we do Z? And ultimately, maybe another coworker might say, I endorse, and many times they're going to use someone else's name here, whoever came up with these different ideas. I endorse this person's idea to do Y, right? You might also just say, I support so-and-so's idea to do Y, or I agree with this person's idea. Again, endorse would be a bit more formal. Some work environments are extremely formal, so you might hear those words propose and endorse. Other work environments might be more informal, so you might be less likely to hear propose and endorse used in those situations. Okay, let's talk about a third situation. Okay, where do we go for dinner? Right? Maybe you're talking about this with family. Maybe you're talking about it with friends. You could even be talking about it in connection to work. Maybe you need to take a client out to a particular meal. Okay, so again, as this is being discussed, one person might say something like, I suggest we go to a Thai restaurant. Or maybe someone says, I recommend we go to an Indian restaurant. Okay. And so those types of statements, again, most common with your friends, with your family, because they are less formal. Okay. Now, sometimes we might encounter a very formal, very proper friend or relative who says something like, I propose we go to a Chinese restaurant. Okay. I would say, amongst my friends, that would sound really weird. I'm kind of like, wow, this got very fancy, got very formal all of a sudden. Okay, but perhaps in a more formal work environment, if you're having these discussions, you might hear someone say that, and then again, many times this is going to be followed by some sort of reasoning or an explanation as to why this is the ideal choice. Finally, I've got one more example. Maybe someone, I'm going to use myself here. I tell someone else, hey, I'm going to buy everybody's meal if we go to the place I want to go to. Okay, so then that friend maybe tells other friends, hey, Katie offered to buy if we go to a Salvadoran restaurant. So, again, this is kind of just a pretend situation, but hopefully it helps sort of illustrate that we can use suggest and recommend. They're so close. Again, recommend just a little bit stronger. And offer really, I would say, is more of the outlier of these particular groups. So here, someone is suggesting that they are going to do something else. So it's not just about having a particular good idea or knowing something or someone that is well suited for a particular plan, but it's really kind of taking that step to do something more. And here, in this case, it's I'm offering to pay for everyone's food if we go where I want to eat. And I pick Salvadoran because I just love pupusas. That's one of my favorite things to enjoy. So I'm always suggesting Salvadoran restaurants for that reason. Well, I hope this video helps us better understand the connections to this group of verbs. Again, if you have more situations in mind, I would love for you to make a comment so that we can all learn from one another and different situations that we encounter. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day.